Hi, this is Rick Adams from practicalcsm.com, and a warm welcome to you all to part one of a three-part podcast that I've recorded recently with Guy Nirpaz from Totango. And our topic, or our title for our podcast, is 4 Challenges for the Customer Success Profession in 2021. And these were 4 challenges that Guy came up with upon my request, which we discuss in detail one after the other. This is part 1 of 3. I hope you enjoy it. And at the end, please do make sure that you subscribe, and then we will make sure that you get notified when parts 2 and 3 are released. We have a particular pattern for releasing. So part 1 will be Christmas Eve, December the 24th. Part 2, December the 28th, and part 3 will be on New Year's Day, January the 1st, 2021. How exciting is that? So there we go. This is part 1. I hope you enjoy it, and make sure you subscribe so we can notify you as soon as part 2 is available. Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Rick Adams from practicalcsm.com, and today's guest is the one and only Guy Nirpaz. Guy is the founder and CEO of Totango, a leading enterprise customer success platform with thousands of customers worldwide, from small businesses through to big corporates such as Google and NTT and SAP and Zoom. Totango software enables companies to align around their customers, driving increased loyalty and lifetime value. And Guy is also the co-author of Farm Don't Hunt, a definitive guide to customer success that was published in 2016 and comes highly recommended for all CS professionals to read. And in fact, that book was the topic of my previous podcast conversation with Guy back in October last year. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what inspired Guy to write that book, then do register as a free member on our website at practicalcsm.com, and then you can check through our archives and have a listen to that previous podcast recording. And of course, gain access to dozens more podcast discussions with the likes of Peter Armley from Oracle, Christy Falterosso from IntelliShift, Nick Mehta from Gainsight, Matt Miskowski from SAP, David Sakamoto from GitLab, and many, many more. Anyway, Guy, welcome. It's great to have you back, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you, Guy. And today you've very kindly agreed to share your thoughts as a senior leader of one of the profession's largest and most well-known software providers on what the future might have in store for us in 2021. And in fact, our title for today's podcast is 4 Challenges for the Customer Success Profession in 2021. Now, of course, a lot has happened in the intervening time between last October, when you were last here recording a podcast with me, and today. And I think it's safe to say, when I asked you then if you'd be prepared to come back for a future podcast recording with me, and you were kind enough to say yes, neither of us could possibly have imagined what was coming around the corner for us in 2020 and the effects that these things would have, both in general and within the customer success profession specifically. And I think it's also safe to say that what has happened to us in 2020 will have a profound effect on what we will experience moving forwards into 2021 and beyond. So before we dive into the future, please can we take a look back over 2020, and hopefully for the final time, and can I ask you to perhaps summarize your observations around what happened in 2020, with COVID-19, of course, being the major disruptor this year, and what that has meant for the customer success profession during 2020? And finally, where do you think we are now as we close out this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2020, definitely we all felt massive changes in the way we kind of our day-to-day lives and the way we do business. So a lot of change, and still very similar daily routines at home for the most part. And I think what the common thinking is right now is that 2020 accelerated a lot of inevitable changes because of the restrictions we all had on businesses, and a lot of decisions have been accelerated significantly, driven by necessity. In that regard specifically, it was clear that with more less clarity on spend of new buyers, your customers are your business, but I would say your customer is your business. Many businesses realize that, when there are no clear revenue streams, your revenue streams that have the most you have the most knowledge of, and you can actually take action and impact as your customer. So that was a big, I would say, moment for customer success and accelerate the trend that customer success is your business. I think additionally, the way in which we conduct business has changed quite dramatically. When everyone is at home, both for internal collaboration, can't collaborate in offices, and cannot visit customers, the move to figuring out how to use digital and accelerate the adoption of digital customer engagement management has taken front stage. And I think business models that have that ingrained into them, like product-led growth, or distributed businesses, or freemium models, all of those concepts that have at their core customer, the core of their business, and digital distribution models have been built or accelerated. People that had this have experienced massive success, or companies that had that have experienced massive success. Companies that didn't have these models in their arsenal had to very, very quickly build them and adopt them, because you had to do it. And that has proven that it's actually not only working, but in many cases, it has a lot of advantages: cost advantages, frequency advantages, ease of engagement. So, we've learned a lot in 2020. That's for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, great points. What I learned from what you said, and I agree with all the points you've made, is, first of all, 2020 was a reactive year rather than a proactive year. You had to pretty much, for most organizations, drop what you were planning to do and do what you had to do. So that was, I think, quite interesting in and of itself, and a great point to make. I think the second thing that I got from what you just said is that however nice net new is, and new customers are to have, and however essential they are, your existing customers are absolutely critical to the success of your business. And this was something that was well known in customer success circles, obviously, but may have been a wake-up call for some businesses. And if anything, I would say, although obviously COVID-19 is devastating for so many people, and on a personal basis for the customer success profession in the medium to long term, arguably, it has helped to evangelize that concept of just how important it is to look after your customers. And then the third point that you made is that the world is different now. People are working from home. People are much more mixing their work and home lives, and having to find new models, disruptive and innovative models of how they go about doing their work. And of course, people are everybody's customers one way or the other, and so we all need to adapt our services and the way we work, A, for ourselves, and B, because our customers are also experiencing that. So yeah, great points, Guy.
And if I may add one more comment, which I really like what you said about the consumerization. Like, everyone is, business is people giving products and services to people, building, creating, delivering. I think when we all use, the very modern food delivery services, or the e-commerce, which is, very well, accelerated, not just the use of it, but also the experience of it. I think we are all businesses are being inspired by, we have to, deliver that level of experience, right? I mean, the commerce and the experience and the success, this is all kind of meshed together. And we're seeing good examples like the food delivery services, like e-commerce, that are bleeding into, how we do businesses. So I've heard one of our very largest enterprise customers saying, a company that works in IT service delivery, the leader telling me, we got to Netflix our business. So you can see the inspiration. He thinks about their business as, I got to be able to create a Netflix experience, although the product and service is very, very different. It's not, movie or entertainment or show. So
right, yeah, a good point. There is no organization too big to not be impacted by this.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, I think for many, so many people, 2020 really was a truly disruptive year, perhaps wildly positive for some business owners, and maybe they've experienced an unexpected and very welcome growth in demand. And you were talking perhaps about some of the types of organizations that might have experienced that, but at the same time, both personally and professionally devastating for others, and perhaps
Absolutely.
for the vast majority of us, may not have necessarily been either extreme, but certainly would have been highly unsettling and maybe emotionally taxing, and one which most people are probably pleased to see the back of, frankly. So the question is, Guy, will 2021 be a very different experience for us than 2020 was? And as we've already stated, we cannot escape the obvious fact that what's happened in 2020 is going to impact our lives moving forwards into 2021 and beyond. But I thought, it would be great just to pick out some of the key challenges. And you were kind enough to put some thought into this and come up with 4 challenges for us to discuss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list these 4, and then we'll go through them one by one. So the 4 challenges that you came up with are: number 1, operating in a very uncertain and constantly changing environment. Number 2, transitioning to the new normal, the remote from everywhere world. Number 3, re-implementing the customer journey and interaction model for a new digital first world. And number 4, competing in the new world whilst keeping customers top of mind and demonstrating value. So, Guy, thank you for taking the time to think this through and come up with that list, which I think is quite an interesting list. And how I think we should deal with this, if you're okay, is if we just simply take them in order, and I'll just read them out one by one, starting with number 1, and then get your feedback on it. Does that sound okay with yourself?
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah.
All right, cool. So in that case, let's start with item number 1. Item number 1 is operating in a very uncertain and constantly changing environment. And Guy, from a business perspective, whenever I think about change and uncertainty, I immediately think about risk. And in effect, the greater the uncertainty and the greater the levels of change, the greater the amount of risk that a business is exposed to. And now risk can work both ways, of course. And as we've already said, there have been some significant winners in 2020, companies like Zoom and HubSpot in the B2B space. Companies like Amazon and Netflix in the B2C space are perhaps obvious examples of this. But generally speaking, business owners, and for that matter, individuals, like to feel that they have a reasonably accurate predictive model of what the future has in store for their companies or their households, and tend to be less happy when the uncertainty and therefore the risk increases beyond their normal comfort zone. So Guy, please do tell us your perspective on the high levels of change and uncertainty that we are currently experiencing in both our work and home lives, and the impact this will have perhaps in 2021, and the challenges that this impact might bring to CS teams and to CS individuals as well.
Yeah, so I think what's clearly going to be similar in 2021 to 2020 is the uncertainty and the rate of change, right? We are fortunate to talk about the vaccine, but we don't necessarily know how it's going to impact and when is it going to impact and what's going to be the lasting effect of the changes in hopefully positive health of the population. But there's definitely is going to be a lot of change, and I think a lot of people and companies made decisions. People moved from areas to optimize on working from home, and people have noticed that businesses at cost levels that do not require business travel are efficient. So there's definitely going to be a lot of ongoing change, and I think what I would recommend for businesses is embracing change, which basically means adopting agile operating models for the business. So, on one hand, people said, okay, everyone on March timeframe had to take their annual planning and throw this into the garbage and replan. And I think what a lot of companies did is move to an ongoing planning or short-term planning cycles. Clearly, things like annual budgets or 5-year plan will have to have the strategic elements to them. But companies have to adopt agility into their core business. And this is very similar to, how software development, which is the area I came from, have adopted, and in the 90s, the late 90s, the agile software manifesto was written, and one of the core tenets of that was you got to adopt an agile software development model in order to embrace change, because the level of uncertainty downstream is so high that you cannot assume that building software is based on physics, right? That all you need to deal with is gravity, and besides that, then it's going to work. I think similarly in businesses right now, and I think to your point, the companies that have been able to capitalize on on the changing conditions obviously had a good pole position towards that. However, they had to adapt as well. I mean, if you just take example Zoom. Who can even remember that Zoom was hit by, questions about their privacy and security? And Eric Yuan, their CEO, took this very, very seriously, and basically, changed the roadmap to address security and put this behind them. Or, Zoom is being used for so many different use cases than the business environment. My wife, who's a yoga instructor, is a big Zoom user, and she runs her business on Zoom, as in before that it was like a physical. So new use cases that they had to adopt to. So I think businesses who have the agility in their mindset and build themselves operationally with technology and with tools to allow themselves to capture information quickly, come up with action plans, execute on those action plans, make the necessary tuning, are going to benefit from that. And quite frankly, I think those who are not going to be in a position to change quick enough or adapt fast enough, I think will suffer greatly. So my recommendation would be, build your business to embrace change. And specifically in customer success, you asked this question on customer success. This is why I think we are seeing at Totango a significant increase in demand for our product, is because companies, working on let's say sub-optimize the business process and models and manual work and slow change cycles that could have worked prior to COVID, but now when people need to change quickly, the debate whether or not my version of the spreadsheet versus using Totango is no longer relevant, because the key question right now is, how do I move fast enough? So I need to rely on technology that enables me to, execute fast enough on my business and customer success specifically, change my success plays, come up with new engagement models, support our freemium initiatives, support our digital initiatives, and so forth and so forth. All of that has to, I think, is key on the operating model. And on the customer success team specifically, I'd say that much like your business is changing, your customers' business is changing. So you remember that there was this thing of one of the reasons for churn is champion is leaving, right? I can guarantee you that all of your champions are going to change their position, their title, or their focus in the next 12 months, for sure. So that cannot be anymore the reason behind why customer cancel. You got to keep pace and be in lockstep with your customer and their business initiative if you want to be relevant for the business moving forward. So that will require, which I think digital and will help, a much higher rate of engagement frequency and a much more efficient way to capture changes within your customer base, like capturing usage, capturing all the engagement channels, and really figuring out a way to execute on your game plan, because your customer is changing. So annual planning with your customers and quarterly business review tracking, I suspect it's going to be a little bit too slow to keep up with customers next year. So, you'll have to introduce new products, new services, new practices, new content to be able to help your businesses coming through. And so, if I need to summarize it, embrace change and become agile as a business. That is that would be my advice. That's my advice for my business. That's my advice to my customers and to your audience as well.
Adapt and survive. If you don't adapt to rapidly changing environment that you inhabit, you're not going to survive as an animal. You're not going to survive as a business. I think that's a great point. I think that the amount of change that is occurring means that we have to be even more agile and even more adaptive than we were before. I think your example and your illustration from the world of software development, moving from the waterfall approach to development, where you work it all out in advance down to the last detail. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed part one of my conversation with Guy Nirpaz on the 4 challenges for the customer success profession in 2021. As you already know, part 2 will be made available on December the 28th, part 3 on New Year's Day. So if you'd like to be notified, please make sure that you subscribe, and we will make sure that then that you get notified when they arrive. practicalcsm.com. Thank you very much indeed.